Hello, I'm Sanj and welcome to the Future of Wellbeing, where today we have a very special guest who's going to share all their insights on wellbeing with me and with you. Get ready, get excited, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome, Amer, to our episode of the Future of Wellbeing with Amer Lakhani. Absolute pleasure to have you today, Amer. I know your time is very valuable, so thank you so much for being here today. And first of all, some context of how we met each other. We met each other back in May 2018, which seems like a very long and short time ago. Long in terms of what happened since then, but short in terms of, you know, looking back over history to think it was only a few years ago where we first met, courtesy of Dusty, of course. So, and then there were also conversations, you know, I met you because I wanted to learn more about the world, you know, the workplace, and, you know, hand on heart, I can genuinely say that you were one of the first people I ever met who seemed to be aligned with the person that they wanted to be and the path that they were on. And as a man, that was very inspiring for me because, again, you know my background in terms of where I worked and the people that I worked with, but there weren't as many fulfilled men at that point in time than when I met you. So first of all, I thank you for the inspiration from that moment onwards. And
no, welcome.
We even had conversations about potentially working together, and and that was a really exciting time.
Yeah, it was. I think it was. I don't think that was the intention for either of us, but it was just, you know, from having conversations, we thought, okay, this could potentially work, and then you kind of had that moment of realization where no, I want to go and be a happy man as opposed to being opposed to working in search. So yeah.
No, and that was great. And then, you know, Amer's been really kind, and his partner Amerjit to let me do a workshop with you last year in the Dubai office, which was excellent. And you know, maintained contact over then. And you know, Amer's definitely a man that I look up to. And even though he doesn't maybe know it as much as I do, but it's an absolute pleasure to have you today, Amer. So first question, before we get stuck into the topic, who is Amer Laganni? Who is Amer Laganni?
Gosh, who is he? Does he even know? Okay. You mean professionally or as an individual?
Just how would you introduce yourself? Yeah.
So look, so I am an Indian by heritage. I grew up, was born and raised and educated in the UK, so already a hybrid, and spent the first sort of 25, 26 years of my life in the UK. I studied law with the great aspiration to become a big lawyer at one point, but that just, you know, didn't happen for one reason or another because I decided to move things in a different direction, and worked in the city in London, very fast paced for about 5 years, before I moved to Dubai in 2012, which is where I still am. So even more of a kind of cocktail of different type of person from working in so many different places and being from a specific background. In terms of what I do as a job, you know, I work for a leadership advisory and executive search firm. And so my professional area of expertise is hiring and developing leaders. And so we work with corporates, we work with financial institutions, we work with startups, lots of different types of companies in their future leaders and how we can go about growing them and assisting them with their careers and so on.
That's fabulous, fabulous. And again, you know, I'd only heard or discovered that industry upon meeting you.
Correct.
So it's quite funny, but I'm definitely going to touch more into the work you do and definitely that leadership angle in a few minutes. But my first, you know, my topic of choice, and as you know, is a career in wellbeing now. But before we get to, you know, the leadership, the executive search, firstly, how would you, Amer Laganni, define wellbeing? So what does wellbeing mean to you? And secondly, what was a period of life or a particular moment in your life where you realized that wellbeing must be a priority for you going forward?
So well-being to me means having a balance of mental and physical health and wellness in your life. And I think that's what it means to me. It's ensuring that my body is healthy. It's ensuring that in turn that my mind is healthy so that I can get the best out of things out in life for myself and for those around me. So whether it's my colleagues, whether it's my wife, whether it's my child, whether it's my broader family, and so on and so forth. And the period of time when I realized that well-being was a priority was definitely not in my 20s, because I was the priority. And having fun was a priority, and growing my career was a priority. And I think once, you know, you get a little bit older and there are more facets to your life. And, you know, I got married and I had a kid and so on. So you're juggling many balls. And I think it's at that point that you start to struggle a little bit, or I did certainly. When I hit sort of 32, 33, I thought, I'm struggling a bit. I'm getting tired more often. I'm not able to concentrate as much at work. I'm traveling a lot, and that's having an impact on my body and my mind. And so I made an active and conscious effort to, exercise more frequently, to do, to read a lot more, to take a lot of time out for myself. And so on. So I think it was at that point when my life started to get a little bit more full that I realized that you have to kind of step back a little bit and focus on yourself a bit.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Can I just dive a little bit deeper into that? So you mentioned in terms of, you were maybe 32, 33, you had a lot of balls in the air. And there was definitely a point in there when you made that active decision to prioritize your health, whether that's mental or physical. So what has been the major difference since, prioritizing those personally and professionally, would you say?
So by exercising more and so on, I feel a lot more energized. I feel that I can last a lot longer in the day. So it's more a case of the exercise element has led to me being able to kind of do a lot more personally and professionally, right? Because I was getting quite tired, quite lethargic, and so on. So that's been the biggest kind of element.
Awesome. More energy for longer.
Yeah, it's a good tagline.
Awesome. Amazing. And then secondly, as somebody who's worked across, like you said, in terms of Britain and then the Middle East, and, you serve clients who operate everywhere. I know you've got a big arm of your work in India too, and a lot of your colleagues are in India too. So as somebody who's worked across multiple countries and with clients who are based internationally and have their work internationally, firstly, how has the pandemic impacted the executive search for you? And secondly, then, how do you see the future of executive search in a COVID and post-COVID world?
So yeah, I mean, COVID did impact us as a business because, our business is growth focused. And so when the pandemic hit, everybody was at home. Businesses, especially in most sectors, weren't making money apart from a couple of sectors. And so there's no plans to hire. So it has a direct impact on our inflow of business. So from March to about June was a pretty scary time because there was less work coming in. We had sort of residual, mandates going on and income, coming in, but there was no pipeline, so to speak. So it impacted us in that sense, in that there was a halt on the way that the organizations wanted to grow. But I think, post the first couple of months, organizations actually started to realize and started to introspect into, how do we have the right kind of leaders within our organization for the next phase of how things are going to be? Do we have the right sort of CEO and CFO, for example, to lead our business through this crisis kind of situation? And a lot of boards and a lot of owners of businesses in this part of the world actually realize that this guy is very good during the good weather conditions when things are good, but when it comes to a crisis situation where your business needs someone who's quick thinking, someone who can transform things and put your people at the forefront of your business, there weren't many leaders who did that. So for us, there was a lot of work around replacement hiring where businesses needed new leaders and so on. So there was a lot of kind of activity happening from July onwards that continues up until now. So that's kind of, that was good because it kept us busy. But it's not great for, a lot of people who were out of work because they weren't the right leader for their organizations going forward. You asked about the future of executive search. We've started to do a lot more work around the assessment piece. So, when you're hiring an individual, it's really important, especially at the leadership level, to ensure that there's a huge focus put on being able to cope in crisis situations, business continuity, transformation, and these sorts of things. So we actually put together a framework of what organizations should be assessing their new age leaders on post the COVID situation. So how have they dealt with a crisis before? Because if something like this, whether it's a virus or a war or whatever it might be, how is this individual going to react within that kind of a situation? So there's a lot of emphasis kind of put on that kind of a thing. So anything with regards to crisis, transformation, stress management within a business, there's a lot of kind of focus put on that in terms of our search methodology post-COVID.
It's made it very real, hasn't it? Before, you might have, these crisis may have been quite abstract, for a lot of businesses, and like, well, we survived, the financial crisis of 2008, whatever happens, going to happen, we're going to get through it. But to the scale of which this has an impact, and do you believe it's maybe taken the industry forward in terms of advancing maybe where it needed to, in terms of, you spoke about more emphasis on the assessments. Do you think that was something that needed to happen?
I think so, yeah, in that regard, where, it made it very real for organizations that we really do have to assess whether this person has crisis management experience or transformation experience, because it's something that could actually happen. And it's actually, helped us educate some of our, family groups. For example, we work with a lot of the big family conglomerates here who never thought about, a virus coming and sort of, affecting the globe in this kind of a way. They may be sort of planned for things like economic or political turmoil to an extent, but a lot of the regional groups didn't have business continuity plans in place. They didn't think they had to. The multinationals do, by virtue of their policies and procedures and so on. So the likes of your Deloitte's, your McKinsey's, or JP Morgan are going to know what's going to happen in that kind of situation. But yeah, I think it's helped us as an organization and as an industry, help the local players in sort of maturing their businesses and thinking about the bad things that can happen, so to speak, going forward.
Amazing. Then moving on to those leaders specifically, because again, I know what you do is very unique in terms of leadership level only. So that in terms of, one thing is maybe recruitment or search within a whole organization, but then to take that to the executives only is, that's a league by itself. So in terms of leaders, and, as a leader yourself and as somebody who spends so much time conversing, but also listening to leaders, I think, you must have a lot of these amazing and fascinating conversations with leaders. But for those who listen to this and want to become leaders and, feel like they have that personality trait to become a fantastic leader, what are maybe, say, two main traits that you believe a world-class leader must have going forward?
So it's been an interesting one, because I did a presentation on this recently, and there were about 6 or 7 things. So I'm trying to narrow down the two that are most important. I would say the two most important ones, the main ones, I would say agility is the most important. It's the ability to think fast, make the right decisions, collate all of the information that you have, with your people and with data in the market and whatever, then to create, realistic outcomes. So it's the ability to kind of be dynamic within any kind of a situation. That's something that most leaders, sadly so, have fallen short of in the region, is the ability to be really adaptable and agile. So that, I think, is really key. And the second thing, again, sadly, that a lot of leaders have fallen short of is the sense of empathy. So putting your people and their well-being at the forefront of your business, whilst, that's not going to make you any money, by looking after your people and making them feel valued and part of this as a family that is combating this situation together, that is something that the better leaders have been able to kind of display more so. So having that real kind of active, transparent communication with your people, really thinking about what the crisis means for everyone within your business. So the people at the C-level generally might be fairly well to do, have lots of nice things and so on, but other people within your business might not have the luxuries you might have, and it might be a struggle. So having those open dialogues with people and really thinking about you and having those open town halls or whatever it might be, are definitely things that people need to think about going forward. So yeah, agility and empathy for sure.
I love both of those. And I noticed, when we started talking about leaders there, you briefly mentioned about how a lot of leaders fell short on some, the key qualities that were required or will be asked them going forward. Has your opinion of leadership changed? I know we didn't plan to speak about that, but has your opinion of leaders as a whole, in terms of maybe the types of leaders we had, versus what we need, or in terms of leadership in general, has that kind of changed much during this pandemic?
Yeah, I think so. I think the entire people element has become a lot more important. So communication, putting your people at the forefront of your business is something that was always important, but it was never, something that people talked about so much. Yeah. Whereas throughout the crisis, and we're fortunate as search consultants, we can observe, our clients and those around us as to how various leaders are behaving and coping with this kind of a situation. And it's those that start up a conversation with, I had a town hall the other day and I asked them about, their kids and how they're doing and how they're dealing with homeschooling and all those sorts of things. Those are the people that are really creating great cultures within their organizations, and they're then progressing as leaders on the business side as well. So yeah, definitely. So I think it's brought that kind of realness that we are all humans, and you are the leader of your sort of pack within your business, and we're all working together to kind of get through something. So that's definitely come out.
No, that's amazing. I suppose that's the beautiful element in terms of what you do, Amer, in terms of the exposure you get. It's not just the people within your team, but having exposure to clients and how they operate their businesses. You can definitely get strains of best practice and what to do, but also what not to do.
Correct.
I'm sure you've got lots of data.
Yeah.
And then, this is a beautiful segue for me, in terms of just happiness right now, but in terms of your reference to empathy and how leaders can definitely put themselves in the shoes of their team. To take us to our final question, which again comes back to the angle of well-being, but specifically at the workplace. Mm-hmm. Again, the reason I've asked you for 2 tips and now 1 tip is because I want specificity. And, I know you could probably give me 100 tips and you're 7, but I don't want to overwhelm anybody, including myself, who might be listening to this. So in terms of leaders to sustain well-being or a culture of well-being within their workplace, what is 1 tip that you would refer to?
I think, 1 tip. It would be maybe to offer flexibility. And I think we've been forced to offer flexibility as leaders during this time through working from home and homeschooling our children and so on and so forth. And these things are actually going to continue for some time. So there are a lot of people, especially the big corporates, who are still working from home. There are a lot of people whose kids are, schooling from home and so on. So you're managing a lot under your roof. And so I think leaders have to, ensure that they're offering their people that flexibility. Now, those people then can't, take the mick and just sit around doing nothing. But it's a case of, as long as they're productive, as long as they're engaged in their work, we should have that kind of flexibility. And I think back to when I first started working, you had to be at your desk at a certain time at 8:30 a.m. If you were there at 8:32, then everyone kind of looked at you in a really weird way. And you had to stay until, your hours were until 6 p.m. But if you left at 6, then that's, it's like having a half day. So I think those kind of nuances just kind of need to go out of the window a little bit. And it's more about what are you doing for your business rather than sticking within those kind of rigid structures. So I think flexibility is something that a lot of people need to think about a bit more and apply practically going forward, not just because they have to.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And I think, I completely agree with that. And again, from my time, and I'm sure you know some of these people too, but there's lots of people who would be sat at the desk for, maybe 8 till 8, but they're looking at Skyscanner or they're playing games on their phones. And again, it's
exactly right.
They've always got away with it. Whereas now it's that accountability of, okay, we're happy for you to work from home. That stigma from working from home is almost gone. But what are you going to do from home? What's your output?
Yeah, agreed. I think that's, it's something that's very real and everyone is conscious of that, it doesn't matter where you're working from. It's actually, going back to what you were talking about in how is it affecting executive search as an industry, locations almost not become relevant anymore. So, if I was previously hiring a CFO or a chief marketing officer to be based out of Dubai, they would need to be based here. But now, if they want to still be based in Germany or London, providing the time difference isn't so much, they can do that. So it's given a little bit more flexibility to the hiring process as well. So yeah.
That is wild. And then just conscious of your time, Amer, in terms of, is there one person that you would recommend or suggest me reaching out to be on this video series? Anybody specific that comes to your mind?
Oh dear, now you're putting me on the spot. I suppose I should recommend somebody in my company, shouldn't I, as being an inspirational leader. Can I get back to you on that one? I need to think of someone who will be, because there's a few people that I think would be quite good, but I don't know whether I can kind of mention it on something like this,
Absolutely, well played. Amer, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy man, but your insights today have been fantastic, and I look forward to keeping in touch over the future. But also, maybe one day soon I'll be able to come to Dubai and we'll be able to meet for a coffee in Dubai.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Look forward to it.
Cool.
Good.
Thank you, Amer.
No worries. Good speaking. Take care.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for watching The Future of Wellbeing, and I'd love to hear your comments and feedback in the sections below. Please also share this video with at least 3 friends who would find it useful. Until next time, and until the next very special guest, I wish you a fantastic day ahead. Take care, stay well, stay safe, and ciao ciao.